allow any players to come over for friendlies?
Not anymore.
Yeah, no.
What happened?
Weston and Pulisic hurt.
We hurt them both. That's okay. Pulisic's going to England, so I guess it doesn't matter. And they're not going to use him either, probably. I shouldn't say that.
I'm just more afraid with Pulisic it's going to turn quickly into a Bob Bradley at Swansea situation.
Where Americans can't cut it.
Well, not that. I think he can cut it. It's just that they're going to bring in so much high expectations around him. A, for the asking price that they sold him for, but B, because he's an American, we put under an intense microscope where if he doesn't cut it, and they'll say, oh, yeah, they can't cut it. 2010 was a fluke.
It's always blame the Americans, which I have to somewhat agree with because we are a pretty arrogant-ass country. So
we own two of their biggest clubs.
Everyone's like, hey, we should all use meters because, most of the people around the world, nah, we got footballs over here, so we're going to do yards and feet. Y'all can keep that meter stuff.
I was in Scotland, and they used miles just as easily as they used kilometers.
Really?
Yeah. It went back and forth. The only thing that I really had to learn from the metric system was Celsius.
Yeah. I realized we were arrogant because when I was in Japan, there was a map at a restaurant I was at, and Japan was in the middle of it. And I was like, oh, why is Japan in the middle of the map? And they were like, yeah, why wouldn't it be? And I was like, oh, because usually the maps look like this and Africa is towards it. They're like, yeah, you're in Japan. Of course, Japan's going to be in the middle. And I was like, wow, look at me.
Where'd they split it? Like if it was in the middle, some countries getting cut off.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like we were on, I'm trying to remember how this was. Yeah, we were like half cut off on the right and left side. So I think it was like the East Coast was on the right or in the
I think I found it.
On the left. Yeah, something like that.
It was weird. So Greenland's the one that's getting cut off.
There you go.
It splits right down the kind of almost the continental divide between the Atlantic Ocean. So Greenland's the one that's getting cut.
Not America map, so I wasn't reading it.
All right. Well, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
It feels very last minute today, more than usual, right? Maybe it's just me. I got home like 40 minutes ago and typed up the notes as fast as I could. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. All right. Well, glad you can make it. Jason, have we said hello to Kev at all? Kev, you there, buddy?
Yes, I am. Making sure my microphone's actually on.
There we go.
My hiccups went away, so we're good.
That's good news. That's good news for sure.
Childish.
I still have a half a glass of mead left.
There you go. I brought up a bush to get me through the show. So, all right. I'm going to hit record, and then we'll jump right in. Welcome, everybody, to the USL show. It is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. It's Phil. I'm back to talk to you. Unfortunately, Evan is still having the time of his life watching Republic of Ireland play. Oh, now I'm forgetting who, but, a random country.
To beat Georgia 1-0.
There you go, Georgia. So your home country, right, Jason?
Yeah, one of my favorite memes of all time is when there was a war in Georgia and someone on Yahoo Answers and said, I turned on the news and saw tanks. I live in Atlanta. Are we in a war in Georgia right now? So always representing.
It had to happen. The voice you just heard is Jason Weintraub, famous from League One Fun and a lot of other podcasts, to be honest. Jason, how's your night going, man?
It's going good. Better than Germany teams who keep allowing their American players to come play in friendlies.
Yeah, it's been a rough week for Americans playing in Germany. Yeah, I guess Tyler Adams was like, I'm not staying because this is what's going to happen to me, right?
Yeah. Red Bull's like, nah, get him out of there immediately.
Get him the hell out of there. The other voice you heard before his that wasn't mine is Ryan. Ryan Allen. I almost did it again. Ryan, how are you doing today, man?
Going pretty well. I do want to espouse at least one food hot take, and I want to say that marinara sauce is better than Alfredo sauce. This hot take is brought to you by the fact that when I was getting pasta today in the ECU dining hall, out of 10 people in line, I was the only one to get marinara sauce.
Listen, man, white sauce, Alfredo sauce at a college cafeteria is not good. It's just not good.
Marinara sauce is clearly the better option. You only get Alfredo sauce if you're getting it on fettuccine Alfredo.
I'm with you. 100%. The voice you have not heard yet is Big Kev McCamish. Kevin, how's it going tonight, man?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. You said a few minutes ago you're sipping on mead right now. That sounds good.
That's really good mead. I found it when the wife and I were on vacation last weekend, and we ended up buying another bottle. So
I thought
expensive stuff. It's like $45.
I thought millennials were broke. All y'all are taking vacations and buying expensive bottles. I don't know what is going on.
I'm 30. I'm almost 37. Does that still make me a millennial?
No, it doesn't.
No. Yeah, you old ass.
I think I'm 35, and I think the year younger than me is the first millennial year. So I'm like borderline. Kevin, I think you're pretty comfortable not being a millennial.
Yeah, I know I'm within a couple years of the border, but I don't think I am.
Millennials are considered around starting at 1980 or 81.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a few years removed as well. So
I was at 82, but what else?
Yeah, interesting. I think I count. I spend way too much time on my iPhone, and I'll admit it. So
I think do
too. All right. What do you say we jump right into the news today? I wanted to start the show off because it's a special week in League One. It is their opening weekend. Their first games ever are starting this weekend. And Jason Weintraub, who is also a part of League One Fun, a new show that I hope you've listened to by now. I just listened to your League One 101. I think it's your best show yet.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was because everyone told me I had a 2-minute tangent limit. So I think because of that, we stayed on agenda, stayed strict on cue, and yeah, we got through it. If you guys haven't listened to it, we gave a guide to every team, the structure of the league, everything that you would want to know about this league in 40 minutes. So if you've ever been interested, if you've seen a player that's playing for a team, or if you're looking at potential players to move up to your USL championship team, definitely a show that you guys should check out, a podcast you should check out, learn the in and outs, learn what it means to go full Mingo, and learn who we think is going to go the furthest this year and who's going to do some damage in the Open Cup.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always thought was cool about the USL is that we're the beginning of what will become, players that play in MLS and higher at this point now. And I'm hoping that's what League One becomes. So I've always been confused why some people are kind of too snobby to check into the USL. It is gaining popularity, and that's a good thing. But I hope the more we get players moving from League One to USL to MLS to abroad, the more depth, the more nerds we get, more soccer nerds we get looking into League One.
And you should definitely check it out. I mean, the league has 5 U.S. youth national team players, right? So, and these are players who potentially can make a jump straight into MLS because of the affiliates, whether it's with North Texas going to Dallas or Richmond having a Columbus defender on loan who is a United States youth national team player. So if you're a nerd and want to look at some up and coming players that you think can fulfill our desperately needed back line and left back position, that's the place to go.
Definitely. And yeah, I didn't even think about that. They're going to be skipping the championship half the time probably. So that's something to watch for. Ricardo Pepi had a pretty good finish in a friendly. If it wasn't today, it was yesterday or something like that. It's just good stuff.
Yep.
Sticking with League One, the good thing about it too is that you can watch it. It is going to be broadcast on ESPN Plus, or if you're not in the United States, it'll be on YouTube, just like the championship. So that's pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to watching all these teams. If I can find time to watch some of them, I'm going to do it. What do you think, Jason? What's the first game everyone should watch? The biggest one? I know
It is tough. So Friday night, if you aren't doing anything, which you're not because you're listening to a soccer podcast, so I assume all you nerds aren't doing anything on a Friday night. You've got the inaugural game. You've got South Georgia Tormenta FC versus Greenville. I'll be at that game in Statesboro. I'm a Georgia State alumni, so a little begrudgingly, but I'll be there to witness it, and I'll be there witnessing in style in a VIP tent that Tormenta FC have. So I'm excited to see what comes with that. But this is going to be fun. Tormenta is a team that was very successful last year in PDL, which is now League Two, went undefeated in conference, brought in 11 other players from last year, and have a kind of mysterious team play, some players that we might not know of. The coach and the team itself this preseason has been keeping it under wraps as how they're going to play and which kind of possession style. So, not a lot of us know how they're going to come out of the gates. And then Greenville, brand new team, has crazy support already. I think it's going to be one of the surprises of this league. You've got the first United States player to play in the Premier League, and Coach John Hart. He has a great defensive core and brings in hometown heroes like Cameron Saul, who I think is going to be a household name by the end of the year. So if you had to choose a game, I think that's definitely one to check out, especially, like I said, since it's on a Friday night. Grab yourself a beer, whiskey, and have some League One fun.
I love it. Well said. There's nothing much more League One sounding or lower division soccer sounding than something like a VIP tent. That's some Fire Festival kind of stuff right there.
Don't wish that upon me, please. I do not. If I see a cheese sandwich, I'm out of there.
Exactly. We don't want to spend too much time. Go listen to League One Fun if you want to hear more about League One. But we do have to mention, because Ryan has been guessing. He's been predicting this game from the beginning. Ryan, you want to talk about the new news with Forward Madison?
So on, I want to say Thursday or Friday of last week, Forward Madison announced that they were announcing a friendly against a top 5 European opponent, and it took me just a tiny bit to connect the dots that my guess would be Hertha Berlin, which today they ended up announcing that it was indeed Hertha Berlin to be their opponent on May 24th. I figured they worked out a deal with Minnesota United because Hertha is playing Minnesota in their new stadium on May 22nd, and just kind of keep them in that part of the country. But no, it was just cool. Like, they called out how many people would want to guess it, and it was interesting in that thread that the Forward Madison account was liking every single tweet, responding to it, guessing a team, except my particular tweet. So I thought that was just kind of like really telling. And then obviously when I tweeted today that I called it, they liked that one. So it was all in good fun.
Yeah, soccer predictions and how to read your communications department 101 from Ryan right there. That'll be a lot of fun. Forward Madison, everyone's got to love it. Again, League One Fun talks about it plenty. So let's move on to the next topic. I didn't read this until Ryan brought it to my attention before the show today, but it's a good article in the Post-Gazette in Pittsburgh talking about the future for the USL in Pittsburgh, maybe mentioning that they could use a new stadium in the near future or distant future, and that it would be a game changer for the USL in Pittsburgh. Ryan, since you brought this to my attention, what were some of your big highlights of this article?
I thought it was interesting just talking about with Jake Edwards, basically saying it was the one professional soccer team they have here, and it's really important that you keep Pittsburgh in USL and it's being successful. I know you mentioned in the show notes that it's going to be interesting to watch a lot of these teams that they're good independent sides, but maybe not poised for MLS. I know the struggle with Pittsburgh is you always have to compete with the Steelers, and the fall you got the Penguins, Pitt Panthers around this time. The Pirates are still here. And it was interesting just to hear his opinion on these certain teams within the league, especially the ones who would possibly be moving to a different stadium. I know it mentioned here in this article that Pittsburgh was 24th in attendance last year. It's just one thing to consider for a few of these sides going forward.
Yeah, and kind of what you got to there. I love that, Jake Edwards knows what he is. He knows he's the championship. He's League One. He knows what kind of teams he's going to hold on to and what kind of teams he's going to lose to the future, which is the 40-team MLS, if we're all being honest. So Pittsburgh is a team that he could probably hold on to and will be one of his biggest teams when all is said and done, to be honest. So that's kind of a glimpse of the future USL in the world of a 40-team MLS. So, yeah, good one to kind of just get a glimpse of the future there, in my opinion. Any other thoughts from anyone else there? Let's move on to, I didn't hear much about this, the Nashville TIFO talk. I just saw the talk. I didn't read into it. Listen, I'm not a gossiper. You know, I don't like to read the tabloids of lower division soccer, which is basically Reddit. But I figured we should mention it because I'm actually kind of curious now. Anyone want to spread some rumors with me?
Sure.
Kev, what do you know? Tell me. Spill the beans.
Well, I don't know any. I just follow Twitter, and it just sounds like the Nashville supporter group, they're printing their TIFO. I don't know if it's on a single sheet of 8x11 or if they're somehow getting a full like wall poster size. It might be hard to see in the stadium, but I would understand that if it was like, oh crap, we gotta like whip something together in like 30 minutes. Hey, Kinkos, can you help us out? Sure. I wouldn't really care, but I guess the game is like a month away, so I don't really understand that.
I think the reason I'm not huge on this topic is I'm not as in on supporter group culture because Luligans, I'm not like super involved. I didn't realize it was like a huge deal that you have to paint your own TIFO and that printing it is plasticky or cheap. But I get it.
I didn't realize it was a big deal either. I mean, I'm part of the 107th and I'm a Timbers Army member, but I'm not like ingrained in the culture. I know a lot of the people and I talk with them and everybody is just amazing. I love all of them. But I'm just so busy, you know, I don't have time to just hang out with people and talk and kind of get into things on the depth that many others have over the past 10, 15 years and such, you know, before even MLS. When I was in college, I had the time and hung out with them, but that was before the Timbers Army days. But I just know that, you know, when we do TIFOs, it's always painted. We have a big warehouse that we paint that stuff. They all go out and they draw on the canvas, and then volunteers come in and paint. And sometimes it takes a couple weekends. But when you've got time and planning ahead, then you just schedule and people come and do it, and it's great.
So I don't know what I haven't heard anything. I've heard that they were printing it. I don't know how it's going to set up. I know last year in Atlanta, we did a full stadium TIFO pretty much to where it was everyone got in their chairs and had something that they hold up and it spelled Vamos Atlanta. And it was cool. But the thing about that was obviously when it involves that many people, it was printed, right? Or it was items that were, I guess, flashy and not necessarily paint on paper. So I'm wondering if it's something like that to where everyone's going to have some kind of a piece of it and then they flip it or flip, you know, and it spells out something. I'm not in a supporters group, didn't know that there were set rules for supporters culture and making TIFOs and all of that. So I'm not quite sure when that was started, if that's just like a club rule or a supporters group rule. But y'all talk about Nashville going, you know, being MLS's little, you know, brown-nosing son and, you know, abiding by their rules and being manufactured this year. So what else do you expect? Why does it matter, right? Like if y'all aren't worried about them going to MLS and what they're doing this year and getting loans and whatever, then don't worry about it. And y'all paint y'all little TIFOs and make sure it's better. I don't understand the whole idea of, oh, look at them. They're like, who cares, right? Like they're obviously doing this to impress the viewers, to impress the audience so that they can gain support for MLS. Worry about what y'all are doing because y'all want to paint TIFOs, then paint one better, right? When Nashville comes to your stadium, I should see a better TIFO than what they're doing, or I should see the commitment for you to make your own TIFOs the way that you are committed to talking about it, right? Because if it is part of some supporters group culture rules that I don't know about, then I'm sorry, but I didn't think that it mattered, right? If you want to call a team manufactured, yeah, they're going to have manufactured TIFOs. So don't worry about it and just do your own thing.
It does play into the narrative, doesn't it, though? I hadn't considered that. And so it is almost like too perfect not to say something to a certain extent. But, you know, I do respect that some people do spend all the time, like Kev talked about, and paint. And I mean, it's a huge sacrifice of time and effort. And so it is something that you should have a lot of respect for if you're doing it that way. But is it better? Is it not? I think that's a good debate. Ryan, any thoughts before we move on?
I just hope if they are printing it on paper that it just doesn't rain for the match.
Fair enough. Well said. We wanted to get to this last week. We just didn't have time. And so I'll say this now. We may not get to every single game today. And the reason is I do want to talk about this before we move on. And that's because Mike Pendleton, Fat Deuce with a PH on Twitter, does amazing attendance graphics every single week. And we have to bring attention to it. I'm pulling up the graphic right now. I hope you guys are too. And, I'm looking at all the different things that happen. I'm seeing the average in all of USL Championship is 4,400. The coolest thing I'm excited about this year is League One is going to add into that. And we're going to get to see League One outperforming probably some of these bottom clubs in the championship more than likely.
Just skip Orlando. Just go ahead and don't really look at that one.
Yeah, Toronto too, right? But the championship has their two teams, League One has their two teams, and those are always going to suck. I mean, we've covered that. We've well covered that in the past. Ryan, do you want to get us started on some of the things you noticed about this?
I guess as a good opener, we have New Mexico United leading the way with average attendance, although they also have had, I think, 3 home matches in their first 4 games. So that's helped kind of boosted it, but it still looked very impressive from their side. You have the usual suspects of Sacramento, Louisville, Vegas up there. El Paso is another really good shout. And then, of course, you look down towards the bottom and you have a bit more disappointing ones of Swope Park Rangers, Bethlehem Steel, and New York Red Bulls 2. Of course, New York Red Bulls 2 and Swope Park are in their same stadium situations from last season of playing in children in MUS and SU and Children's Mercy, respectively. And then Bethlehem moving from Bethlehem to Talent Energy. It made a situation not really improve their attendance.
Yeah, it's almost like all those people who are saying Bethlehem was so far in the middle of nowhere aren't showing up at Chester either.
Not in the middle of nowhere. Well said.
Yeah, well,
One thing I noticed is the top 7 of all the top 7 clubs in attendance, 5 of them are played in baseball stadiums. And so would we rather not have, that almost an average of, it looks like 7,000, 8,000 attendees to 5 baseball stadiums? Would we rather not have that, or would you rather have a culture started and perhaps upgrade like Louisville's going to do in a couple years? What do you guys think about that? That's kind of a cool thing to see on this chart.
Yeah, show your worth, right? Like I understand when teams come in and have to play on baseball fields because of them not having the amount of demand and finance to build a soccer-specific stadium for a team that doesn't exist, right? So if you have to play on a baseball field for a couple years, but then you show the demand for it, you show the consistent attendance, and you put that pressure on, the county or the city or whoever to build a stadium and find somewhere to and show that it's going to make them money, then yeah, I'm about it. Do I want to see that happen for more than a decade? No, I definitely don't want to see teams playing on a baseball field permanently, but if that's what it's going to take to start it, then I'm all about it.
Yeah, it's exactly how I feel. That's something else we didn't mention is Butchertown released that video and what would you call that? Almost virtual 3D renderings, I guess is the best way to say that, in video form of Butchertown Stadium that is being built as we speak. Maybe not as we speak, but it's being worked on. Looks great, right? I think almost everyone has positive thoughts about that. Ryan, what do you think?
I think it looks fantastic. It seems like it's the route I think a lot of USL teams should take. I think Kyle Kepner a few years ago had a really good tweet saying that a lot of the stadiums in Scandinavia were like really good models for these USL teams because they were like enclosed 15 to 20,000 seat stadiums, and it was just something that the league should definitely shoot for. And it's, or at least with the MLS2 side, so we have seen improvements to come into Defiance, seeing their attendance boost, and the Portland Timbers too has definitely benefited as well. Kev, would you like to speak a bit how just playing at Merlot has improved their attendance?
Yes, their attendance is better at Merlot. I think in general, one caveat I do want to make on their opener of what was it 21,024? There is there's no other soccer going on right now. The Timbers first team has 12 road games as the stadium construction finishes up on the expansion. The Thorns haven't started. The very next day, this was Saturday that they opened. On Sunday, the Thorns started their preseason tournament at Merlo as well. They probably actually did a little bit better than 21,000 or 2,100. Can't fit 21,000 at Merlo. That'd be cool though. It's a great. I mean, I've been there. The pitch is just glorious. One of the better grass pitches I've seen in my lifetime. But it's a nice, cozy little place. I think the people really like going there. They prefer watching T2 at Merlo for the most part. Because even if you got 2,000 people in Providence Park, that's a far cry from how it feels with 2,000 people at Merlo. Versus, I mean, and even in Providence Park, I think Timbers have gone as low as 500 for a T2 game down there. It's not good when they go back to Providence Park, but I'm very interested to see how T2 does with their home games at Merlo before June 1st, because 2,000 is a little bit less than I was hoping for, but more than I was expecting. So I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm. Any other attendance thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, shout out to Vegas being top 5 in attendance and bottom 5 in results. So apparently, if we lose, you get tickets is a winning key for attendance out there in Vegas.
I'm gonna dub that a spicy take. That was good. That was good. Vegas, I've said it before. I got to give them props because their game day is fun.
Yeah, it's an atmosphere. Yeah. Which I think right, in a sense, and I think for new teams, that's something you should strive for. Now if that's all you have to show for after a couple years, then yeah, you obviously need to work on a product on the field. But I can't hate if Vegas is showing consistent attendance and making that money despite what's on the field for their first couple years. I think they have a very unique atmosphere and game day, and yeah, you can't hate on them for that.
Yep, I agree. Okay, we're going to touch shortly on USL players on international duty. CONCACAF League of Nations is going on right now and has a lot of interesting stuff happening. I think we'll probably talk to Pony about that next week a little bit more. But I know I've been really interested that, one of the cool storylines for the USL is their national team players. So I'm going to at least mention in the U20 team, Trey Muse, Jalen Lindsay, Matthew Real, Andrew Carlton. On the 23s, JT Marcinkowski, Marco Farfan, Donovan Pines, Eric Williamson, Josh Perez. Some of those are tweeners, of course, but you can see some of those or most of those or even all of those sometime during the year in USL Championship. That's pretty awesome. Anyone else want to mention some players that are on here? We got a good long list that Ryan made for us.
Yeah, I had watched the US-Egypt game, and Pines was probably the best player on the field.
Wow.
Probably not necessarily because he stepped up, but more so because he had to, because the U.S. just couldn't hold possession, and Egypt shot at them 20 million times, and Pines was there to block a bunch of them. So team definitely owes him dinner for him taking the bullet for a lot of those shots. But yeah, in a game that wasn't a great game from the U.S., Pines did stand out.
He's been getting good reviews at Loudoun, so that's pretty cool too. Anyone else want to mention some players?
Jamaica with 8 of their own players of Jason Johnson, Junior Flemings, Kevin Lambert, Speedy Williams, Sean Francis, Malik Foster, Jamo Topi, and Brian Brown. Those are all very notable players. If you were looking at preseason teams, that's 3 from Phoenix. You have Brian Brown from Reno, Louisville with a pair, and Sean Francis and Speedy Williams. Those are all from top performing clubs, and to consider that 8 of them are all playing for their national team is an amazing testament for how well USL has been doing. I know a lot of players in the league, at least as far as the international countries go, Jamaica is definitely up there in the number of players they have in this league.
Without a doubt. Yeah, you want a good attacker in the USL, Jamaica's a pretty good spot to go find them. So they've been very good. Shall we move on to games, fellas? Let's start. games we watch is what we're going to start with. So if we skip a game, we're not in order. That's why we're going to do the ones we watched first, and then we may or may not hit up the ones that we missed. A lot of games every week, so I'd apologize, but for goodness sake, people, have a heart. Games we watched. Let's start with New Mexico United 2, Tulsa 1. Ryan, you watched that one. What do you think?
Santi Mara just keeps scoring. I mean, we were talking about in the group chat that we didn't think it would be able to maintain this, but they just kept on scoring. I think what was most impressive from this was that New Mexico just dominated the first half of this game. I think they held basically Tulsa without shots in that first half, and it took a really big response from Tulsa in the second half to score that one goal, but it ended up not being enough. He had one shot in the first half, but ended the match with 15. So definitely it was a better response from Tulsa after halftime. But New Mexico just continues to really perform well at home. Devin Sandoval got the other goal in this 2-1 win.
Yeah. And, we'll talk about it more. I don't want to spoil it. Let's move on to the next game. St. Louis versus Tampa Bay Rowdies, 1-1 draw. I'll just say that St. Louis and Tampa Bay, I think after watching 2 of their games each, I've watched all 3 St. Louis ones, but I've seen 2 Tampa Bay games. These 2 teams are really similar, I think. And I'd say Tampa Bay has a little bit more finesse to them, but St. Louis has a little bit more bite. And so that was a really cool matchup that I think is still going to be an interesting matchup when they play away, when St. Louis goes away to Tampa Bay. So those are 2 teams to watch that they're going to be pretty decent. At least I would say, as high as 5 or a little higher if things go well. Both could drop off the edge of a cliff as well at any given moment. So 2 teams to watch. Ryan, did you think anything else by watching that game?
Same thing. Goal was St. Louis's first shot on target, but overall I thought it was pretty even. I mean, it was an 11-11 shot battle with both teams having 3 shots on target. And there were 4 more from Tampa Bay who were blocked, but overall it seemed like it was a very even game, and the draw was pretty much well deserved. It's kind of a pretty standard result. I will say it was interesting that both teams' captain scores with Fink of St. Louis and June Gonzatti of Tampa with the PK at 76.
Yeah, I didn't consider that. But yeah, that's something else I wanted to mention. I'm glad you kind of said it there, is that even the stats were really, really close as well. So, and then the other storyline with Tampa Bay is they just got a good draw away from home against a decent team, at least so far, in St. Louis. So another storyline to watch there with Tampa Bay. Can they win away? It looks like they might be a little better at that this year at the very least. Both teams toward the top of the East, 2-0 with 1 draw. So let's move on to the next game. Swope Park Rangers 2, Pittsburgh Riverhounds 2. Jason, why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, so if you want to review this game, go ahead and just skip to the 70th minute. A lot of action not really happening in the first 70th minute or the first 70 minutes. So surprising names on the Swope Park side. Kellen Rowe was probably the one of, if not the best player out there, as he should be, since he is an MLS player playing in the division lower. But then I looked at this game like a horror film that spent way too long trying to character build for the first 70 minutes, and then decided to put 2 hours of action in the last 20 minutes, because the last 20 minutes of this game was absolutely insane. And so Riverhounds scores a goal off of a set piece, Toby with a header, and just terrible marking from Swope Park. And I mean, that middle of the box was open, like wide open, more open than a Waffle House. And it was just, I don't know, if you look at the tape, it was led by Segbers, who starts marking Toby and then stops and then goes up to the top of the box where there's no one. And I feel like if he was there, not to take any away from Toby's goal, I think it went off his thigh, but if he's there, that at least put somebody there to disrupt it and not have a wide open goal. But then Segbers made up for it 10 minutes later with a great cross after a 1-2 he played. And at the end of that cross, who scored that? Let me check my notes. Oh, Rodney Wallace. Yes, the 30-year-old Rodney Wallace is playing for Swope Park. So these are not your 16-year-olds that were scoring last year. So then Rowe scores a few minutes later to put Swope Park up 2-1. But what I want everyone to do is on that goal, watch Busio, because Busio drew in 3 defenders after getting the ball and pushing forward, and it left the side wide open, which was then a easy cross to Rowe to finish it because there was no one there to really disrupt it at all. So in a game where Busio didn't really do too much, he was efficient with his passing at 85%, but he made the difference when it mattered. And then we get to the 90th minute. And the 90th minute, Dos Santos, speaking of players who didn't do too much for the whole game, has a great flick to Voliski, which set up a PK after Abundalali brought him down. But let me give y'all a little bit of a take here, a spicy soccer take, if you don't mind. I don't think it was a PK. I think it was a PK that shouldn't have been called, put it that way. If you go back and look, you will see that Voliski has his arms wrapped to the front and pushes to kind of slingshot himself in front of Abundali on the run. So he started behind him and then slingshots himself in front of him, and then Abundali has no choice but to start stumbling and fall into him for the PK. So I just want everyone to go watch that because it was an important call in the 90th minute and could have been a one that saved 2 points for Swope Park.
Interesting. Voliski, I've kind of mentioned it before. Voliski and Dos Santos are 2 players that were really successful for Lille in the past, but it was like 3 years ago now. So I don't have tons of faith. I feel like Pittsburgh is a little bit falling behind, just a little bit. Like Lille ball, I think this year is going to take a bit of a dip. I'm not too impressed with them, only because also I've been very unimpressed with Swope Park's defense in general. I think they've been pretty terrible, and I think the New York Rebels game was more like what they're going to be like this year than this game. Because I'm starting to get a little bit low on Pittsburgh Riverhounds, but we should probably move on. Any other thoughts about Swope Park versus Pittsburgh? Oh, Gideon Zalalem played in this one as well. New signing for Sporting Kansas City. He played in the 6th role, moved up for a couple minutes to the 8th, and then they pulled him out for the Malaysian Messi, who Zalalem is going to be using his fame to take his spot, in my opinion.
My question is it with Swope Park or playing all their Sporting Kansas City players, and I mean starting players like Rodney Wallace has won MLS Cup with the Timbers, and was starting with New York City, and now he's playing with Swope Park or Sporting Kansas City. Is it because they didn't have a game because of the international break and they needed minutes, or is there health issues? They're trying to like gain health and to get full fit, stuff like that. I mean,
I think it's mixed because I was a little confused about Kellen Rowe. Had just played 60 minutes with Sporting. Granted, he's not been playing a ton, so maybe that's part of it. But I was a little confused about that. He's way too good to be playing in Swope Park regularly. I hope that was a one-time thing.
And still Pittsburgh got a point. So.
Right.
It's true. I mean, props to him,
But I know Sporting is still in CONCACAF Champions League. So they have a couple of games coming up to where they're going to have probably 4 games in 2 weeks. So maybe Rowe is in there to stay loose in case he needs to be playing on the weekend games when they have to go down to Mexico.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the best thing I could think of as well.
So, yeah, I mean March 30th through April 14th.
There, I like to say that Pittsburgh almost got killed by the MLS loan monster, which we're going to see tons and tons this year. Of course,
Rodney Wallace.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we spent too much time on that. Let's move on to Charlotte 3, Atlanta 2, ATL UTD 2. At least scored 3 goals as well for a draw. Ryan, you watched this one. This one looked like a Western match to me. What did you think?
It was wild. I mean, you had Romario Williams open scoring in the first minute, just the first of his hat trick. He gets another one in the 42nd, and it just honestly, if Charlotte, as Pony said on Twitter, if they played matches like they play in the final 20 minutes of these matches, they would be one of the best teams this year. The first 70 minutes of the game this year, Charlotte has been outscored 5-0. In the final 20, they outscored their opponents 5-1. Like, you start off in the 75th minute, you have Dominic Oduro gets one back. Then you have Kevin George in the 85th. Then in 90, you have Jorge Herrera, who puts Charlotte up, and then only to have Romario Williams cap off his hat trick in stoppage time of 90 as well to make it a 3-3 draw. It was like, again, like, just go back and watch the final 20 minutes of this game and you'll get the entire gist for at least how it went down.
Yeah, and every game Charlotte's been doing that, so that's kind of interesting. I guess that's only 2 games so far. So, but yeah, I said it's like a Western game because Charlotte plays really open soccer. Their games have been exciting because there ends up being a lot of goals scored, kind of like a Phoenix game or a New Mexico United game so far. So something to watch there. They're kind of bucking the Eastern Conference vibe that everyone's been following the last several years. So that's another one to watch. Let's move on to Louisville 2, Hartford 1. Oh, I watched this one, and Hartford. I just want to say that Hartford hasn't been terribly impressive yet. Why am I blanking on the coach's name? But he's playing like he's always played, and it's real defensive, not super attacking. And they did kind of get a goal in this one, and it was just that kind of goal. I don't know.
Jimmy Nielsen.
Thank you, Jimmy Nielsen. It was going to kill me.
Puma.
They look like the energy from 2 or 3 years ago whenever he was there. And they did make the semifinal, the Western semifinal in one of those years. So it does work. It can work. Does it work in the new USL? I don't know. I've just been feeling like the USL has taken a step in the last year. Only even the last year has been a big step, in my opinion. But guys like Lilly and Nielsen, I worry about them a little bit right now, but I may eat those words, and I'm happy to do that. The other side of this is that Louisville is, 2 wins now, I believe. So not against great teams per se, but, they're getting their stuff together. Luke Spencer looked really good in this game, and I think that's a good thing for sure because he hasn't looked terribly dangerous until this last game. El Paso got 2 goals when they played Rio Grande Valley. They also got 2 goals, so that's a draw. Kev, let's start with you on this one.
I watched this as I was waiting for T2 to start, and kind of I need going forward. I need to watch the correct team from New Mexico. It was very much, I think, 2 teams that are going to be struggling this year. Played out very much like that. El Paso is probably going to be disappointed that they didn't get the win. It's I think it's just a new team. They're struggling a little bit defensively. RGV don't look all that good either. So. It was not a very exciting 2-2 draw.
Well, RVG had like a bunch of Dynamo players come in last minute too, right?
Yeah, and I think when we get these weeks where MLS is not playing because they're taking international breaks or these teams have other stuff, what's surprising me is that they would bring it in on an away trip. And this always happened with Portland. If the first team was not playing, if they had a week off and T2 was in town, you could almost guarantee what I dubbed a T1.5 team that they would throw out there just to get, reserves or maybe even a couple of starters that wanted to get some more minutes out on the field and play with T2. And it's one of these, it's the same kind of sort of situation, but the only difference is like why they would take them on the road. But I guess maybe going all the way across Texas and into Mexico is not that far. I mean, it is, particularly by West Coast standards, but sure, if they want to do that, it's fine. Still only got a draw.
I mean, on Twitter, Seriously Local Soccer Pod was basically their full-time result. It said it felt to them like a loss, honestly, and I'd assume they would have to be disappointed. I mean, it was a fantastic crowd in El Paso, but to give up a goal at 79 and 90, it just seems disappointing that they had to just share the points that night.
I forget what team always drew last year. El Paso is starting to feel like that kind of team this year. But I remember on the pick'ems, I would just give that whatever team that was the draw every single week. And so
was it Fresno?
Yeah, it is. It's Fresno. Yeah.
Yeah, last year was Fresno. They stopped doing that, but I think for the most part, I think from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And to me, that could be a culture thing. Is the only reason I mentioned that. So. Something to watch, perhaps. Orange County 2, New Mexico United 2. Let's start with Jason. It's been a second. What do you think of this game?
Yeah, it's a game of 2 halves and an important draw, in my opinion, for OC. New Mexico came out, dominated possession in the first half. Santi just caused havoc everywhere. I mean, this man was connecting on 75% of his passes. At one point, Santi went up to Kevin Austin at the 23rd minute Mark, and just said, "Oh, that's a nice ball. I think I'm going to take it," and immediately just took it off his legs and went towards goals. Scored a goal in the first half, and it was that high press that just really gave OC problems. It's what Mike Jeffries kind of did with Charlotte last year. He had this high press, but I think now that he's got younger players and more importantly players who aren't hurt, it's working for them. And they pressed well. OC wasn't even in the game for the first 30 minutes, and then they finally started getting possession. But there was at a point where there was a 6-minute spree where OC didn't have the ball for longer than 20 seconds. That's what that press did to that team. And Suggs was a key role for that. He was all over the place. So first half, New Mexico goes up. OC had 0 shots on goal. But then big play from the 17-year-old, the youngest signing for OC, Aaron Cervantes, one-on-one goal with Ryan Williams, saves it at the beginning of the second half. And if he would have made that, it would have been the game because New Mexico is up 2-0. That puts them up 3-0. And I think by that time, the game is too far out of reach to get. Instead, keeps them in the game. And then Forrester in the last 20 minutes killed it. Created multiple chances, had multiple shots on goals. And a big part of OC turning this game around was getting the possession and slowing down the game. New Mexico, like they've done in the past, aren't a second half team. And they start to panic when they have tired legs, can't clear it. A lot of free kicks, a lot of great corners, which led to 2 goals for them to tie up and have the draw. Both coming from crosses. And a special shout out to Liam Trotter, who came in and killed it those last 20 minutes. 5 recoveries, was the one who intercepted the pass to go up on a counter, drew the foul, and then on that free kick from the foul in the 90th was the one to receive the ball and cross it in the Leonardo for the game winner. So a very good draw for OC because had they have lost that game at home after disappointing last week, I think the panic button might have been warming up for some fans out there.
Jason covering all the details there. I had some questions to ask, and now I don't have any questions to ask. Anything you guys want to add, Kevin, Ryan?
Well, the one thing I wanted to say is, I'm really enjoying watching New Mexico almost exclusively for Santi Moore. But the other thing with New Mexico is, as an expansion team, these guys are just starting to get used to each other. They probably even 4 games in still need to work on their game fitness. So, not lost. I mean, they are at 6 points out of 4 games with a win and 3 draws. They're undefeated still, which is actually, I would say, very impressive for an expansion side. As the season goes, if they can continue that, it's not going to get them anywhere near the top of the table. But in a tight West, it could very well mean the difference between getting a low playoff spot and not making the playoffs, especially if they can turn these draws into wins as they improve both their team chemistry and their fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's theirs to lose because it's not like they are up and then giving up late goals to draw. So if they can correct that changes everything. And it happened, last week, even with Tulsa, or the game against Tulsa, they won, but Tulsa started looking better in the second half and they gave up that late goal. So that's the one thing that New Mexico really has to work on. And that comes with experience and being able to learn to not feel that pressure and to have better positioning with tired legs.
Yeah, without a doubt. Santi Moore, I can't wait to talk to Evan when he gets back about that because he was nowhere near this crazy good when he was in Bethlehem. So
Did you say that? Go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Ron.
I was just saying, if he was nowhere near that in Bethlehem, could you say that he's now playing in a system that works with Santi Moore a lot more than what they used him in Bethlehem?
Yeah, possibly. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think he thrives with the freedom and the space. I think those are the two main things there with New Mexico versus Bethlehem, because Bethlehem does come across as being more stringent, right? They give everybody exact details on how and where they want to be. So, New Mexico seems more like, hey, go out there and do your thing.
Yep, exactly what I was going to say, because you can watch his goal. He's actually the one that starts it on the right side and then trails all the way to the left side and then keeps passing and then goes into the box. And when he scores his header, he's on the right side of the box. So he's someone that literally went all the way around the field to score that goal. And his off the ball movement's just been incredible. And I think that's the biggest difference between him now and at Bethlehem.
Yeah, and I was going to say exactly the same thing, and that could even be looked at as perhaps his teammates are scrambling a bit with him having that kind of freedom. They're having to kind of cover the holes. So there is that as well, that perhaps the openness and the defense of covering that openness is a reason they could be giving up goals. I think if I was playing New Mexico United, I might try to take advantage of where Santi is leaving vacant holes. So all good thoughts. I can't wait to talk to Evan about it some more, but man, that was fun right there. But let's talk about Fresno 1, Reno 1. That's a draw, and these teams are just looking exactly like I thought they would, except Fresno's perhaps a little more dangerous than I expected. We were just talking about Fresno draw, so it is another Fresno draw, but both teams look pretty good attacking-wise. Both teams are pretty open and fun to watch. That was a good game. I didn't watch the whole thing, but what I did see was pretty good and plenty of chances on both sides. Pretty close game. So that one was pretty good. We're going to finish up the games we watched with New York Red Bulls 1, Nashville SC 1. Didn't Nashville lead this one most of the time, Jason?
It's funny because this was pretty much a straight up Nashville. If you want to know if they can play defense, this is how they showed you. They only held the ball for 40%. They had 21 interceptions, which I guess that's an impressive stat. I don't know if you would want to have 21 interceptions in a game, but they stuck to the task. And man of the match, former Union player, since we're talking about Bethlehem and Union, and former Bethlehem player, Ken Trevitt, best defender. And what Nashville's plan was we're not holding on to this ball. As soon as the high press comes, we're just long balling it. And that's what Ken Trevitt did. And then it was a bad back pass that led to a goal, Nashville being up. And then New York, though, keeping that press, keeping the fast pace, did respond. Brian White with a goal. But what I really loved on that goal was that Armolito stood his ground, handled the pressure and the bump, and sent in a good cross. Because a lot of times you'll see players feel that contact, go down, try to draw the foul, and then play on, and they wasted an opportunity. So I really like that. But yeah, one of the things that surprised me was Justin Davis did not handle the pressure well at all, and had a horrible passing percentage. Just wasn't really the presence that he's usually. So that's something to watch for that defense. But I think overall Nashville held their ground well. They came in with a game plan and they executed it.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about the USL that's developed more recently, I would say, in the last 5 years, perhaps, is we see teams playing different styles and reading up on each other and studying video. And this is a good example of Nashville playing against the Red Bull style, certain styles coming from each side. So that was really cool to bring that out, Jason. Good stuff there. Any other thoughts about the games we did watch, even some of the games below? Anything anyone wants to say before I just start reading off scores and stats?
Just wanted to quickly touch base on Portland 2 against Las Vegas Lights. Portland ended up with the 3-1 win, and Darren Aspria's goal for that third one to finish off a brace ram in the 74th minute is by far goal of the week.
Dairon Aspria. No, it was a really fantastic draw-dropping bicycle kick goal. Go out on Twitter, go to Portland Timbers 2 and go find that highlight because it's pretty crazy. A lot of people in Portland were all like, where the hell was that for the first team? Including myself, because what the hell, man? You can do it in the USL, but you can't do it in MLS. I guess we know where you're going to be playing for the rest of the season.
But isn't that what he does? Like when he does, like I remember the playoffs last year, Portland brought him in, and everyone, oh, here we go, and then he made an impact and scored a goal and kept y'all in the game to win against Seattle. So I feel like for sure. This is what he does.
He just he's not consistent. He does well in the preseason. He's makes people excited, like, oh man, maybe he's turned a corner, and then doesn't. And then and it wasn't just last season in the playoffs. He's actually had an impact in the playoffs prior to that as well when we had him. And it's cool. He does. This kind of shows, I think, why the Timbers are still excited about him. But it would be nice if he could be consistent and for the first team. But man, I don't know what's going on with T2. I mean, they're second place in the West, and it's kind of blowing my mind. I wasn't expecting them to win against San Antonio, and I didn't have any expectations for this game, which I guess is kind of nice because you really get to enjoy it. And other than Las Vegas being what I would deem reckless, like very reckless, they had a ton of fouls on T2, and they just all they seemed to be was wanting to just kind of like go after people. Or I didn't feel that there was a plan other than just go out and be aggressive. And given their coach, that sounds exactly like what the plan would be. I don't know.
Well, the problem is that's what they were last year. They had the most yellow cards, they had the most red cards, and they played like there was no plan. You know, I hate it. I thought they were going to change at least some, and they're looking like the same old Las Vegas.
It's only a couple games in, though. I mean, I'm willing to give Wijnaldum a chance, but yeah, you're right. It didn't look like they had a plan, and T2 either are getting lucky or they might actually be good this year.
No, I totally believe it, to be honest, but I'm glad you touched on that. If you guys want to pull up your standings, I'm going to kind of chat about it for a second because I don't know if we did put out our guesses on our predictions on what it would look like. It didn't look like this, that's for sure, but you know, what's to be expected. I think things will even out a little bit more in the future, but right now in the West, we got Tulsa Roughnecks leading with the Timbers, both at 7 points apiece, 2 wins, 1 draw each, and then a loss for the Roughnecks. Have they played 4 games already? That's crazy.
Yeah, their loss was to New Mexico, which, if you think about it, if New Mexico beats Tulsa 2-1, and Tulsa's top of the league, and Tulsa beats Tacoma 4-0 because Tacoma sucks, like, what does that say about New Mexico?
Yeah, that's a great point. Well said. That's why we're talking about this right now, fellas. This is good stuff. Sacramento's also up there at 7 points. The next 3 are Colorado Springs Switchbacks, OKC Energy, New Mexico United at 6 points. And then I don't want to read off the whole standings, but we didn't expect it to look quite like that. Tampa Bay Rowdies and St. Louis lead the East with 7 points. The next 2 are North Carolina and Louisville. A lot of good players still further down the standings, like Indy 11, all the way down in 11th place, Nashville in 7th. You know, not sure if we expected that. Riverhounds in 15th. Crazy stuff. Any more thoughts about the standings before we start reading off the games?
Do y'all think that Tulsa's real?
No, but I do think they'll be better.
Yeah, same. I don't think they played anybody right now.
It'll be weird for Tulsa. It's an odd year, so they should be a mid-table side. With the ELO ratings, they're currently at an 11-16. Their highest ever ELO rating was an 11-18 achieved in 2017, another odd numbered year. So if they just get another 2 ELO points, we'll be looking at an all-time best Tulsa Roughnecks teams, and that's a sentence that's never been uttered in USL, period.
Here's a fun Tulsa fact for you guys. It took 15 matches last year to score the same amount of goals that they've scored already.
That's crazy.
There's an improvement.
Crazy.
They could very well do a Timbers 2 from 17 to 18 and just improve dramatically from bottom to around mid-table. So, but I think one interesting thing that Pony put out on Twitter or what happens the longest, a team doesn't win a game or a team doesn't lose a game. The current polling has 84% a team doesn't win a game, but I'm actually thinking that a team doesn't lose a game this year might go longer.
Interesting. Who do you think it'll be?
I don't know. We're looking at, like, it just seems like there's going to be like a weird side that doesn't like get beaten at all. It could very well be North Carolina FC. We could see it from Sacramento.
But here's my question on that. So you're saying which goes longer? A team doesn't win a game, so draws count as part of that? Because there's only 2 teams in the entire league right now with Birmingham and Hartford that have no points. Everybody else has at least a point. So there's people that are getting results. A lot of draws are happening for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So just to read off Hartford's upcoming matches: at Indy, at Tampa, at Pittsburgh, at Red Bulls 2, at North Carolina.
That sucks to be them.
So that might be an answer.
But for this, it's just a team doesn't have to win a match, and there are 12 different sides in USL who don't have a win at the moment. This season's still very early, but I just feel like it's almost more likely that a team will go on a hot streak and continue winning than a side that basically just doesn't get a win. It could very well be Hartford does not get a win until May because you're still on the road until then. Birmingham's been struggling. Loudoun's down there. I just think that there will be more sides that go through a very bad dry spell before a team ends a hot streak.
Interesting. I like that. We should keep up with that and track that. I'm sure Pony will give us some updates. Let's start reading off all the rest of the games. We are getting close to the end of the show, but we are moving a lot better this week. So well done, group, gang, whatever you want to be called.
Friends.
Friends. No, not
gang.
Soccer colleagues.
Screw you too, Phil.
All right. The first game is Real Monarchs 5, Los Dos 0. This one can be explained by a Didier Traore red card in the 70th minute. All but one goal happened. Oh, no, all but two goals happened after that. But still, Michael Chang had a really good game, and Steve Yasso, I've heard it pronounced. I think he had his first start. He's a younger kid playing for Real Monarchs, so that's pretty great. I'm not going to go too much into that one. Again, this works in a way that I'm just going to keep reading unless you guys interrupt me. So if you have something to say, please do it. Interrupt me. Tulsa Roughnecks played the next show or the next game for says Sounders FC 2 on Google, but that's Tacoma Defiance. Got 0 goals in this one. Luca Lobo got 2 in the 44th and 57th minute. 2 of those were his. 17 shots on goal to 9 shots on target for Tulsa, 9 and 2 for Defiance. Although Defiance had the ball for 62% of the time. This is exactly kind of what I've been saying about two teams versus indie teams, especially, where they're going to play out of the back and they're going to play it right. And they're going to do it no matter what. Because they're going to play dogmatic soccer in a way that they're going to play out of the back and try to keep it pretty the whole time and learn from their mistakes. Tulsa took advantage of that, or in this one, most definitely. So I think that's the story there personally. Does anyone else have thoughts on that? Cool. And I think that can be across the board. You see ATL, UTD2 do that sort of thing. T2 doesn't really do that, though, but a lot of the other Swope does that for sure. So anyway, something to watch there. Colorado Springs Switchbacks got 1 goal versus San Antonio, who got no goals. Oh, man. San Antonio's kind of on a bad streak right now, right? Does anyone know the record offhand? Cesar Romero got his first start and scored in the 86th minute, so props to him. It was a nice one. 16 shots to 9. What'd you say?
Romero's goal was good, and San Antonio's current record is no wins, 2 losses, 1 draw.
Yeah, not expected because I thought San Antonio was kind of coming in hot from preseason.
Yeah, and even that first game, the 3-3 with Phoenix, they let that one slip away from them, but you still saw some positives and thought, okay, this might be a team ready to make, jump a couple spots. But I don't know what's been going on.
With San Antonio, their next 3 games is the Austin Bold home opener, and then hosting Vegas and Galaxy. And I feel like they just have to earn points from those games, or else it's like if they can't get points against Vegas, it would be time to start hitting the panic button in San Antonio.
Yep.
The other side of this story is the Switchbacks may be that good too, and that's something people have been saying, especially in my opinion. Smart soccer guys have been saying the Switchbacks are going to be extremely good this year. And so that's something to watch for sure. San Antonio, to me, also is kind of the antithesis of Tulsa as well. I think they may even things out just by way of who they play and how in the near future, where they both kind of come more toward the middle of the standings.
Colorado does a good job in not letting you play how you want to play. They had 13 fouls, I think, in the previous game and 3 yellow cards, and just really weren't allowing for the game to go that, which way teams want it to go, right? If you come in, San Antonio might have came in there and said, this is how we want to play. And Switchback said, nah, we're not going to allow that. We're going to slow the game down and we're going to play at our speed.
Not to mention, this is something we haven't mentioned in the recent past because Colorado had a bad year last year. This was in Colorado and they play well at home, and Romero did score in the 86th minute at high altitude. Something to think about there.
Yep.
So the next game, Sacramento Republic 4, OKC Energy 1. Jason, I got to throw to you on this one because Pony wants to hear you explain why OKC just lost so badly.
It's because, like I said, it's the year of the Jamaican strikers, and Jamaican right now are on international duty. So that's what I'm gonna toss it up to. Yeah, no, it wasn't. They controlled possession. They had more passes. They were more accurate with the passes. They just did not do anything. They did not make any great chances, right? And when Garcia is the one that's scoring for you, Rafael Garcia is your lone goal. That's not good. You need to have more attacking power. You need to have more chances created. And they didn't do that, and it shows. I think they only had one corner in the whole game. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that they are not good without their Jamaican powers. They need their Jamaican colors and the flags waving.
So here's a question for you guys. Cameron Iwasa hat trick, Romario Williams hat trick. Which would you vote as the better, maybe more important to their team hat trick? Because Iwasa got player of the week this week because his hat trick followed up with an assist on Sam Werner's goal, whereas Romario Williams only got the hat trick.
I think Iwasa.
Yeah, easy, because Romario is not going to be down all that often, I don't think.
Exactly.
At least I hope not for his sake.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I voted for Iwasa, and the reason was because his hat trick came in 11 minutes as opposed to the full 90 plus 4 or 5 for Romario, and he did get the assist to really seal the game away 4-1 in first half stoppage.
Okay, but did Iwasa cause a brawl between the two teams and delay a game for 5 minutes because he was standing over a ball and kicked it out the way for a free kick? No, I don't think he did. So maybe you need to take that into consideration.
I like it. Alan Underwood's been kicking in good stuff throughout this show. The best one so far, though, is I didn't realize this. Luca Lobo from Tulsa Roughnecks is leading the Golden Boot race. So that's
wow,
interesting. Let's finish up. We got one more game. It's Bethlehem Steel 0, Memphis 901. Got 1 goal. Didn't expect this one. I think the stats are interesting on this one. Bethlehem Steel got 11 shots. Memphis 6. 2 on goal for Bethlehem, though, whereas Memphis got 3. Possession 61% in favor of Bethlehem Steel. So another 2-team owning possession and losing the game. Their pass accuracy was 81%, which is really good for having that much possession. Maybe it was in their own half. I don't have that stat, but interesting thoughts there from anybody. Memphis's first win of the year.
Is it more passes for Philadelphia, or for Bethlehem than they had fans in the stadium?
They had 561 passes. Give me a second. I can check their fans.
Oh, that's got to be more than the fans.
Yes, yeah.
And from what I heard was most of it, there's a good 200 fans that were there for Hackworth.
Nope. It was 585 fans.
Oh, so close. Mm-hmm. But again, if you are putting almost as many passes as the number of supporters that are watching your game live, that's not good.
Yeah. Good for Memphis to get a win, though. Good for their fan base to see that. And I think it was a great goal. I don't remember if it was this game, but I think he picked that up from about 25 yards out and just had a nice shot at it. But yeah, more efficient team with Memphis. It's almost like Bethlehem needs a forward midfielder who runs off the ball well and, can score and shoot from anywhere, can have headers or free kicks, or only they had somebody like that. Especially if he was Spaniard. If only.
All right, fellas. I think that wraps it up. We're doing pretty good. About an hour and 5 minutes or so with the intro adding in. So good show this week. Evan will be coming back next week, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to have to come down off his high, come down from the heavens of whatever stadium he was in Ireland, watching them play Georgia. He was way up in the clouds.
Aviva Stadium. Look it up. It's a really gorgeous stadium over there.
It looked really nice, even from where he was sitting, and he said it holds a ton of people. So
Easier for rugby.
So jealous.
word. So, all right, let's close it out with this, which is thanks to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com, and we'll sign out with every individual member of tonight's show. Jason, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me at Home Sweet Soccer, and I'm ready for whatever you're throwing at me.
Ryan, what is the airport code for Wilmington, North Carolina?
You can find me online at ILM_Ryan.
I thought I'd throw it back there a little bit with that one. Kev, where can we find you online?
You can find me at KMcCamishPDX. And if you don't follow me, give me a follow. I don't tweet much, but let's see if maybe people out there can boost me up to almost 1,000 followers. Can we make it? That'd be cool.
That's millennial talk, Kev. Millennial talk.
Away from 300.
I'm Phil Grooms. You can find me, Phil Grooms, on Twitter, 2 L's, 2 O's. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday night at the usual time. Have a good one. And stop.